Hey, welcome all. Thanks for joining us today. Super happy to be here. My name's Tyler Vaughn. I'm a product specialist here at Mackie, and very excited to present to you our From Mic to Listener presentation. We'll also be doing a giveaway at the end, so stick around. You're not going to want to miss out on it. We're giving away an entire performer bundle, so definitely don't want to miss out on that. Today, we'll be diving into the various podcasting studio setups, ranging from the most basic to the more advanced. We'll cover everything from the gear needed, how to use it, and the signal flow involved. This includes both live streaming and post-production podcasts. And there's a lot we'll be covering in this presentation. So if you're taking notes or following along, don't worry if you missed something, because we'll be uploading this to YouTube on our Mackie page, Mackie TV on YouTube. And also joining us today is a very special co-host, Mr. Brad Gagne. Brad, how you doing today?
Great. I'm doing great. How's everyone else out there? Doing good, Ty. How are you doing, man?
Doing great.
Wonderful. So we just want to know where you guys are from. This is a worldwide event, so definitely share where you're from in the comment section below. And that special giveaway, you've got to drop a comment to get entered into it. So definitely let us know where you're from. We'll give you a shout out, and any of your questions can go in that comment section. So definitely shoot away.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to hear where you're from. And again, to get entered into that giveaway, just drop us a comment that gets you entered. So Brad is also a product specialist here at Mackie with myself. He's been working in the audio industry for quite some time now. And Brad and I have been talking recently, and he's very interested in starting a podcast of his own, but had a few questions. So Brad, how about you hit me with those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Most definitely. The first question I have is, let's say you're starting a podcast for the first time, or currently have a podcast, but you're using only one microphone. What are the various ways you can get a professional sounding audio into your software? And like, what gear is needed, and what does the signal flow look like? Can you show us how that works?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you asked, because that's what we'll dive in today.
Perfect.
So the first thing we'll go into is USB mics. So one of the most entry-level podcast setups you could do is using a USB mic. The awesome thing is Mackie now makes 4 USB mics. The first one you see there on the left is the EM USB. Then we go up to the EM91CU, and then the new Carbon and the new Chromium. So even though there's a lot of controls you can see there on those last two, they are actually USB mics. So it bypasses the need for an interface. You plug it directly into your computer using a single USB cable. So we'll dive into what the signal flow would look like for that. So we'll go ahead and use an EM USB. Simply just plug it into your computer using a USB cable. And then in your sound settings under recording, you're going to want to set it as your recording device. That's the same for both Mac and PC. And then we'll dive into this a little bit later. But when you get into your software, you're also going to make sure that you set that as your recording device. So what does the output look like coming to your headphones or speakers? Well, we'll do headphones first. The awesome thing about that EM USB microphone by Mackie that I just mentioned, it has a headphone jack right on the bottom of the microphone itself. So you can actually just plug your headphones right into the microphone itself. And then you're actually going to want to set the playback device on your computer to be the EM USB and not your computer output. This way, the audio gets routed back through the microphone into your headphones. If you are using desktop monitors, though, or any sort of speakers or an external source, just go ahead and use the line out on your computer. Typically, it's a little headphone icon. It's an 1/8-inch jack. And then you would want to plug your speakers into that. In this picture, these are CRX monitors. These are fairly new. And actually, they are included in the bundle that we're going to be giving away later today. So stick around for that. And then, of course, in your playback settings on your computer, you're actually going to want to set it to the computer this time, since that's where your output is being routed to. So again, this is the most entry level you can go as far as setting up a podcast studio. We actually make a bundle that has everything I just mentioned today. It's our creator bundle, comes with the CRX3 monitors, comes with the EM USB microphone and MC100 headphones, and also all the cabling you would need as well. So instead of going out and having to buy all the cabling, it's just in the box. You just plug and play. It's ready to go. And speaking of plug and play, the EM USB microphone is also a plug and play microphone, meaning you don't need to go and download external drivers. You simply just plug it in and it'll show up in your output settings on your computer.
Yeah, man, that is so awesome that you could start a professional sounding podcast with just a few pieces of gear. But what if I already own a microphone or multiple microphones that aren't USB mics? like standard microphones that have an XLR cable. What if I want to add a co-host like we're doing here? How do we set that up?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, with a USB microphone, you typically don't want to use up your USB inputs with the microphone. Plus, you can only set one audio device when using a USB microphone. So you're kind of limited to one microphone when you're using a USB microphone. So a typical microphone you would run into is an XLR microphone. That's the standard. You can find them from Condenser Dynamics, most typical in podcasting studios. But you have to convert that analog signal into digital signal to your computer. Essentially, the acoustic waves that come out of your mouth hit the diaphragm of the microphone, and then that energy has to be converted into ones and zeros to get it to your computer. So that A to D converter is most typically called an interface or an audio USB interface. So we can dive in and take a look what that looks like. Mackie does make two XLR microphones, one dynamic, that's the EM89D, and then also the EM91C condenser microphone. In a podcast situation, you would probably want to use a condenser microphone, so the EM91C will probably be your best bet. We also make those interfaces, the A to D converter interfaces. This is our Onyx series. We have the Onyx Artist, that's a tongue twister, 1.2. Which takes one mic line and then also a line level signal or an instrument. But if you are using two microphones, you'd probably want to step up to the Onyx Producer 2.2. This one will take two individual microphones and has our super strong Onyx preamps. So the preamps are really important when using an XLR microphone. This is what gets you that nice gain. I don't know if you've tried to do recordings before, but sometimes you pull open the gain in your software and there's that hiss in the background. That's called a noise floor. These are super clean preamps. When you start cranking those bad boys up, you're not going to get that noise floor, and you're also going to get the amount of gain you're going to want from an XLR microphone. But if you need a little bit more routing options, such as independent headphone amplifiers, as well as different outputs for different monitors, or if you're routing it to somewhere else, if you're doing broadcasting, you might need an audio interface with a little more routing and flexibility. That's going to be the Mackie Big Knob solution. In this picture, that's the Big Knob Studio, and on the right, the Big Knob Studio Plus. Essentially, they all have the same features, but the Studio Plus is going to have a couple more inputs and outputs and some more features like independent routing for the headphones. But we'll dive into what the signal flow would look like for that. So here's our microphones we're going to use in this example. Say me and Brad are doing a podcast together. So you plug it into your interface with your XLR microphone right into the input section on the interface. And then you're going to go USB into your computer, similar to the USB microphones, but it's coming off the interface this time. And then in your computer, under the recording tab, you're going to want to set the interface to be the input device. This way your computer knows it wants to read the interface, which then in return reads the microphones. So on the Big Knob Studio, let's talk about outputs. How do you get the signal to your headphones and to your speakers? The awesome thing about the Big Knob Studio series, it has two headphone outs, whereas a typical small interface like the Onyx interfaces have one headphone out. So you simply come right out of the headphone outputs, right into your favorite pair of headphones. This is the MC100s by Mackie. And then you want to set the interface, so the Big Knob in this situation, as the output device. So it's sending that audio out to the Big Knob to your headphones. So what if we want to use monitors or some sort of external speakers, or want to send the audio somewhere else if we're doing some sort of broadcasting? On the Big Knob Studio, there's a lot of outputs you can use. So in this situation, we're going to use left and right monitor out A. And then we would go into our speakers, left and right. These are the Mackie CRX speakers here. And then in your output settings or your playback settings on your computer, whether it be Mac or PC, this is where you're going to want to set it to be the interface as the playback device. So super simple routing. The Mackie products kind of take care of it for you, which is great. The signal flow is very simple. Sometimes it can get a little complicated, but that's one great thing about going with Mackie. And all the products I just mentioned in this type of signal flow with these products, we actually make a bundle for too. So it comes with the MC100 headphones, the CRX monitors, a condenser, and a dynamic microphone. Those each come with their own clip or shock mount, and an XLR cable in the box too. And it also comes with the Big Knob Studio. as well as all the cabling you would need, of course. But if the Big Knob Studio is a little bit too much for you and you're not really in need for the monitors, we do make a bundle that comes with the Onyx Producer 2.2, which can take 2 microphones, a condenser, a dynamic, and then as well as the MC100 headphones with all the cabling. That's the producer bundle. And those 3 bundles are new from Mackie, we have a 4th bundle that we'll mention a little bit later, and that's our flagship bundle. That's the Performer bundle, and that's what we're giving away today. So definitely stick around. You don't want to miss that. Again, to sign up for that, just go ahead and drop us a comment. We'll get to it towards the end of here, and we'll give away an entire Performer bundle. But we'll dive into what that looks like here a little bit later.
Man, well said. I'm glad there's options out there like the Big Knob Studio that allows for so many routing options. Now that we know what gear to use and what the signal flow looks like, how do we get the podcast to the audience? Can you dive into the differences between both post-production and live streaming?
Yeah, definitely. So there are 2 ways to go about podcasting, of course. There is the live stream aspect where you're just live on your streaming platform, or you can actually mix it later in post-production and then upload it later. This way, you can actually clean up your audio if you had any clicks or pops, or anyone got super loud or super quiet. You can adjust the volumes in post-production. So I recommend going post if you can. But we'll dive into what both of them look like with the 2 setups we just mentioned so far. And again, later in this presentation, we'll get a little bit more complex signal flows, such as using an analog mixer or multi-track recording devices. But as far as the EM USB and the interface, we'll go ahead and dive in what that looks like. I'll give a brief overview of how the signal flow would look like into your software, but we do have more in-depth videos on YouTube that I actually did myself. We have one using the USB microphone, the EM USB to GarageBand, and one into Audacity. So those are both free softwares. GarageBand is on Mac, Audacity is on PC and Mac. They're free and they're professional as well. So if you are using a microphone such as the EM USB and getting that professional sound from Mackie, you're not going to lose any professional sounding audio using these DAWs. But we'll dive in and see what that looks like here.
Ty, we want to give a couple of shout outs real quick. We've got San Antonio, Texas, Spokane, Washington, New Mexico, South Carolina, Greenville, and in the house here. So thanks for joining us. And if you guys have any questions, definitely let us know. Drop them in the comment section there.
Yeah, San Antonio, Texas. That's real close to me. I'm based here in Austin, Texas, so about an hour away from each other.
Nice.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, so let's dive in to see what it would look like setting up on your computer and in the software. So in this example, I'm using a PC. So make sure, like we've talked about, in your sound settings on your computer, make sure it's set as the input and output device. I'm using a Big Knob Studio here in this example. And then go ahead and open up your software. So we'll open up Audacity. Again, this is free. I think it's audacity.org or .com, one of the 2, but it's free. So set the input device as the Big Knob. We're going to do a stereo recording since we're using 2 microphones, and then set the output as the Big Knob as well. We're just going to go to Tracks, Add New Track. And then when you're ready to record, click the record button, get the talking. There we got some nice healthy waveforms coming in. And of course, if this is going too fast for everyone, there's a lot to cover today. We'll be uploading this later to YouTube, so definitely check it out if you missed anything. And then, to juice up a nice podcast, it's nice to throw a little music bed underneath. So it's easy just to go to File, Import, and upload the music bed of your choice. And of course, we're not going to need all that extra audio, so go ahead and delete it. Let's just zoom in and double check that our waveforms look good. Cool. You probably want to peel down the music just a little bit behind your vocals, but go ahead and select everything and go to Export, and then export to any file type you like. We're going to do a WAV file in this example. Go ahead and name your session or your file, and then say Save. Now you have your full podcast in an audio clip ready to upload on any platform you want, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you're uploading. And it's just that simple. I mean, we did it here in just under 2 minutes. So it is really simple to do, but it can get more complex. So we're going to dive in that today too, and just see what that would look like. So say if we're doing a streaming type of podcast though, and we want to keep it on a budget, again, we're talking about entry-level setups right now. There's a free software out there called OBS. That's O as in Oscar, B as in Bravo, S as in Sierra. It's free to download. It's an awesome streaming platform software. It allows you to use your audio devices, your video devices, and stream them to any platform you like, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you want to go with it. And it's free and it's super intuitive, easy to use. And I'll give a quick demo here on how to set up a live stream podcast with both video and audio. So again, the first thing we're going to do is go into audio settings and select our input and output device as the big knob. And then once you open up OBS, you're going to go to scenes and then create a new scene. That's the left box. The middle box there is scene or sources. We're going to go add source and we're going to go add input device, audio input device. And then this is where you're going to select the big knob or your interface or USB mic. Say OK. And then we also have to set an output. So you're going to go add audio output device and then set your output. And this one we're using big knob. And then you can go to add again, and you can actually select any sort of media you want for your video. It could be a still image. It can be a video you already pre-recorded. It could be your webcam. It could be an external camera, whatever you want to use. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to click Settings. And the second tab down is Stream. So the first thing there is Service, and you can go to Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you want to go. We're going to go to Twitch. And then you sign into your account there where I had my mouse and then go to apply and OK. I already signed in. So that's why you don't see the sign in section there. And then you just say start streaming, which is on the right hand side, right where my mouse just was. And you can see some stuff going on at the bottom of OBS that lets you know you're streaming. But if we open up Twitch, we can see if we go to my homepage right there, it says my channel's name is streaming. It looks kind of weird because we're screen sharing, so it's showing like duplicates of my screen share. But that is how you live stream onto Twitch or YouTube and Instagram. It's that easy, and it's free using that software. And again, I always recommend investing your money into the hardware, the audio equipment, because that's what gets you sounding good. And then you could use OBS if you didn't want to spend a ton on software. But again, we'll dive into a little bit more advanced setups using professional software like Pro Tools, for example.
That is so cool, man. Just let everyone know we're going to be getting to your questions towards the Q&A towards the end. So hang tight. Definitely keep dropping those comments, and we're going to get to you in just shortly, okay? But man, wow, Ty, who knew that using professional audio gear could be so easy? And I'm feeling more confident in my audio routing already just from watching this presentation. But let's say we want to step it up a notch. And what if I wanted to add a mixing console into my setup to use onboard compression to tame down some obnoxiously loud co-host or guest? I mean, of course, not me, but other guests, you know.
Yeah.
And also, I want to be able to use like a built-in EQ and some effects to dial in the tone of each microphone in my setup. Is there an easy, affordable solution out there you could tell us about? And if so, how do we use it? And what does the signal flow look like on that setup?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are using, if you're doing live streaming and you're using XLR microphones, either one or multiple, and you want to dial in the sound of your tone of your voice, but you don't want to do it in the software because, again, you're live streaming. That's something you're not going to do in post. An analog mixer would probably be your best route because it's going to have all the processing you would need there on the analog mixer itself, such as like compression or EQing. And we'll dive into that, what that looks like. And I'll also go into a little bit of what compression and EQ can do for your vocals and how to use it. So you're getting it all here at this presentation.
Nice.
All right. So our signal flow in this one, we got multiple microphones. These are the EM91C condenser microphones by Mackie. We're going to plug it into our analog mixing console. Now, Mackie makes a couple, but this one is the Pro Effects series. We're on version 3, so the Pro Effects version 3. This is the 12-channel, but we make them all the way from a tiny little 6-channel mixer all the way to a 30-channel mixer and everything in between. So in this example, we're going to use the Pro Effects 12V3. And let's take a look what that guy looks like. So if you can learn one channel strip, so that's, let's see if I get my mouse here. That's from the top here all the way down to the fader at the bottom. If you can learn that one strip, which we'll go into today, you know the rest of the mixer all the way up to this point because they're just duplicates on each channel. And also, you're not going to gain more. If anything, you're going to lose some, like the knobs here. But you learn the first channel, you've learned the inputs on an analog mixer. So let's dive in to see what that would look like. So the first thing we got here is our input. So this is where you plug your microphone, your instrument, your line level signal. This also has those Mackie Onyx preamps that we talked about in the interfaces. So you're going to get that very low noise floor and 60 dB of headroom, which is a lot for a preamp, especially one at this price point. And then the next button here we have is the high Z button. This mainly applies to instruments. If you plugged an instrument into the 1/4" jack on that input, then it just allows for the impedance to be wider to allow more flow for your acoustic guitar or whatever instrument that doesn't have a hot enough pickup. But in podcasting, probably wouldn't apply, so you can just leave that button alone. And then insert. So this is where you would insert external hardware. Say if you had your own compressor and you wanted to add it into your signal chain, this is where you would do it. But the super cool thing is on this Pro Effects V3 series, we have built-in compressor on the first channel strips. So we'll go into what that looks like and what compression does. This is the low cut button. So this is actually going to be very useful in podcast situations, especially with vocals. This will take the low frequencies, 100 hertz and below, and cut them off. The low frequencies are the boominess, the boom, 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 the bassy stuff, which happens when you start layering vocals or layering vocals on music tracks. That's when you start getting muddy and you're like, why is it so muddy? And when I export, it's really quiet. It's because you got a lot of low end buildup. This will reduce that. So you simply click this button, it'll roll off that low end, and it'll keep the nice mids, mid-lows, and your highs crystal clear and not clashing with other frequencies from different sources. The next knob is our gain knob. So this is what you're going to use to turn up your microphone. There's a little green LED light next to it. You're going to want to crank this bad boy up while you're talking into the microphone until that level set light starts coming on. That means you got a nice healthy signal. And then the compressor knob. So compressors are very, very useful, especially in podcast setups. What compression does is if you have a guest or you yourself, you get really quiet sometimes, and then all of a sudden you get loud. This compressor tames down that loudness and also makes sure that everything sits at the same level. And if you've noticed, if you have like someone that just burst out in laughter super loud, sometimes Brad does that. But when that happens and you hear that clipping and that gross distortedness, this compressor will tame down that and make sure it's not gross and poppy and distorting. That's what the compressor is for. And it's also a single knob compressor. If you've seen a compressor before, typically you have to adjust all the parameters from the ratio to the threshold to the makeup gain, everything. There's a lot of parameters. This is just a single knob. So you don't have to dive in and really learn how to use a compressor. Just know that the more you turn it up, the more it's going to compress. So you probably want to go easy on it or it's going to sound a little odd. As we continue down the channel strip, the next thing we're going to hit is our EQ. So this is where you add flavor to your microphone. This is where you can dial in your voice and make it sound all sparkly and pretty. This is a 3-band EQ. We have high, mid, and low. So we got the highs, the tss, and the and the highs, and then the mids. Typically, your voice sits around the mid range, typically around 1K, which is the frequency your voice sits at. This mid band is around 2.5K, which is, I know that's 1,500 off, but it's actually really close to 1,000 if you look at all the frequencies in human hearing, which is 20 hertz all the way to 20K typically. My rule is when using this on a vocal mic, you don't want to go past 3 o'clock or turn down past 9 o'clock. So at 12 o'clock, it's bypassed. You're not using it. You turn it to the right, you're boosting. You turn it to the left, you're cutting frequencies. So you just want to dial it in a little bit, add some flavor on the high end if you want. If you need to get rid of some more lows, feel free to crank that guy back a little bit. And then with the mid, play with it, see where your vocal sits with that mid band. But this is how you flavor it. And once you're set, you're set. You don't have to go into a software and then EQ it again. If you're live streaming, this is super useful. It's also good for post-production too, if that's what you're doing. The next knob is our aux knob. So essentially this is another output. If you want to send certain channels to a different output, that's what this knob's for. It's also useful for mix minuses, which is when you add a cell phone into your podcast. Say if you have a caller in, it allows you to hear the caller and the caller hears you and the stream hears the caller and you. but the caller's not getting himself back in like a feedback loop. So the awesome thing is Brad is actually doing a presentation this Tuesday, and he's going to dive into how to set up a mix minus. So if you want to learn how to do that, join us at this time this Tuesday, and Brad will show you how to set that up. The next thing we have down the line here is our effects knob. The effects knob, there's actually built-in effects into the Pro Effects mixers. So like reverbs, delays, other cool preset effects that Mackie put in there for you. This knob will actually apply the effect to that channel strip. Then we got the pan knob. So this pans it left and right. If you're doing some funky podcast where you want your voice bouncing left and right on each speaker, you might want to use that knob, but otherwise just leave it at 12 o'clock. And then the mute button. So if Brad wanted to, just go off on a tangent, I could actually just mute him. And this would mute Brad, so you wouldn't hear him in your podcasts. It also illuminates red once engaged, so you'll know if the channel is muted. And then at the bottom of the channel strip, that's our fader. So this is what sends the audio to your outputs. In this situation, we're going to show you the main outputs. But you also have to route it on the Pro Effects 12 and up. On the 10 and 6, you don't have to route, but essentially the first button routes it to a subgroup. That's a little more advanced, and if you're using like drums, that would be useful. Maybe in a podcast, you wouldn't want to use subgroups, so don't worry about pushing that guy in. And then the LR button, this is going to send it to the mains. So you definitely want to make sure the middle button, the LR button, is sent to the mains. This is going to send it to your speakers. And then the PFL solo button, that's pre-fader listen solo there at the bottom. This allows you to solo a channel so you can hear it. Say if you're running into feedback issues or someone's mic is noisy, you can click that button on a channel and then hear just that channel. And then that chases out any issues you may run into. But make sure you disengage that once you go live or record, because it's just going to record those channels you have the button engaged. So that's only for troubleshooting or doing mic checks, level checks. So back to our signal flow. If we're plugging in our microphones into a mixing console like this, then we want to send it to the computer using USB. The awesome thing is all of our Pro Effects mixers have built-in A to D interfaces via USB. Even the tiny little 6-channel, that's also USB. And the title at the bottom gave me an awesome reminder to tell you we are doing a giveaway at the end of this. We're giving away our Performer Bundle, and the Pro Effects 6, the 6-channel Pro Effects mixer that we've been talking about, comes in that bundle. So if you want an analog mixing console, a few mics, and a couple other pieces of gear, which we'll dive into, stick around. We're going to give it away to one lucky winner. To enter, make sure you just drop a comment, say where you're from, or ask us questions. We're also going to do a live Q&A at the end of this, so ask your questions. And to complete the signal flow into your computer, you want to make sure it's set as the input device. The Pro Effects is your input device. So let's talk about outputs on a mixer. So if you want to send to speakers, that's where our main outs are. You can use 1/4-inch jacks or XLR. And then there's our phones out. So when you see phones, that's not to a cell phone. No, that's to your headphones. That's where you plug in your headphones, and we'll show you how to send the level to those two outputs here. So at the bottom right of the mixer, our phones knob is going to send the volume to the headphones. And then the blend knob. So on the Pro Effects, we put a nifty little blend knob. This is for your headphones. Essentially what allows you to do is to monitor the inputs directly. If you turn it all the way to the left, you're just going to hear what's coming into the console directly. So before it even hits the computer. And then if you turn it all the way to the right, that's going to be the USB playback. So if you are playing back from the computer to the mixer, that's how you hear it if you turn it all the way to the right. But if you have it sitting in the middle, you're going to hear both at the same level. But make sure you hit in the two phones control room knob. That's going to send that blend knob to your headphones. And then to control your monitors or your speaker levels out, that's what the main fader right there is for. Now, be aware that going into the computer, it actually is pre-main fader. So adjusting this main fader is not going to adjust the signal going into your computer, just your monitor outs. All your adjustments for level going into your computer, you want to do with the channel faders. So those faders on each individual input channel. And so if we're talking about outputs again, so plug in those jacks to your headphones or monitors. And then in the playback device, make sure it's set as the output device on the Pro Effects. So everything I just talked about here is our performer bundle. Whoop, whoop. This is what we're giving away today. So if you're sticking around to the end, this is actually what we're giving away. So you're going to get 2 dynamic microphones, an EM89D with the mic clips and the XLR cables in the box as well. The Pro FX 6, which is also a USB interface, so you can plug in both microphones right into the interface, get it to your computer, and headphones. It also comes, all the bundles we mentioned today and the products come with a software bundle too, which we'll also dive into a little bit later.
And drop a comment in the comment section so you guys can get entered into the drawing. We're going to pick the winner out of the comment section. So go ahead and leave us a comment, and stay tuned to the end because we're going to do the giveaway at the end, and we're also going into a Q&A to answer all your questions. So hang in there and we'll get right to it. But that's just awesome, man. As you can see, the Pro FX V3 series certainly is a workhorse. And I love how it allows you to do everything on the console instead of just within the software. I mean, that's very useful for live streaming. But for the setup that I'm planning on doing, I want to be able to mix the audio in post-production. I know you said that the Pro FX V3 can record a stereo mix into my computer, but what if I wanted to mix every microphone independently in a DAW during post-production? Is there a solution out there, or am I asking for too much?
Nope, you're not asking for too much. And the great thing about Mackie is we make the products to do any sort of podcast situation you would like to do. One thing I did forget to mention about the Pro FX is it sends a stereo signal into your computer. So it's every channel, say if you had 4 microphones, all 4 microphones are not going to show up in the software independently. It's just going to be a stereo mix of everything combined. So if you are doing live streaming, it's super useful for that. But if you are doing post-production, then the Pro FX may not be intuitive for you if you plan on mixing afterwards every single channel. But we'll dive into a solution for that though. But with the setup we just talked about here, let's dive into, here we go. The multi-track recorder. Here it is. So this is the solution if you do want to mix in post-production. If you're plugging in multiple inputs, say line level sources or multiple microphones, and then afterwards in your software, you want to go ahead and mix everything independently. This allows you to, turn down someone that was too loud, add different EQs to different people, adding like effects, music, all that can be done in post-production, but it's most intuitive using a multi-track recorder because it allows, again, every source to be on its own channel in the software. Now, if you hear the term DAW being thrown around, that's DAW, that's Digital Audio Workstation. That's the software that allows you to mix your audio. Audacity and GarageBand, the 2 we mentioned before, are DAWs, but there are more advanced DAWs, and we'll dive into those here after this section here. But these are actually what Mackie makes for a multi-track recorder. It's our DLS series. There's the DL16S and the DL32S. They're both multi-track recorders, and there's basically, it's just an I/O box. You plug in your inputs and outputs to this box. And then if you want to use our software to control the processing in the box, we have a wireless app, which you can download for free if you want to. It's called Master Fader 5. It's free to download Mac, PC, iOS, Android. It's called Mackie Master Fader 5. You can play around with the software, see how it looks like, but we'll also open it up here in a second and see what it looks like. But so we're plugging multiple microphones into our MTR, multi-track recorder. In this example, we're doing the DL16S. After that, you're going to want to open up Master Fader, but we'll dive into what that looks like here in a second. So zooming in on the DL box, those top channels are your inputs. So where it says inputs, this is where you plug in your microphones, your line level signal. If you have, feed coming in from a different source, or if you're playing music off a phone, doing a mix minus, this is where your inputs go. And then on the bottom, the female section, that is going to be your outputs. So Master Fader 5.2, that's the latest version we're on. Again, you can get it iOS, Android, Mac, and PC. Free to download. Definitely feel free to download and mess around with it before investing in the MTR if you'd like. But let's see what it would look like once we've now plugged our microphones into the DL. We plugged our DL into our computer. Let's now open up Master Fader and make sure our routing is set up. So download Master Fader for free. Of course, double check if your input and output on your computer itself is set as the DL16S. And then go ahead and open up Master Fader, which is our free application. that runs the DL mixers. It has a built-in wireless router, so make sure you're signed onto it. You can also disconnect once it's set up, but just for the initial setup, make sure you sign on to the DL via the wireless router, and you just go to your Wi-Fi settings, it'll pop up DL16S. And then this is what Master Fader looks like. So the first tab you're going to hit is Devices. Make sure you're signed on to the DL16S. That's the one right there. It'll show up under Detected Mixers once you sign on with the wireless signal. The next tab over is actually our routing. So if we're using 4 microphones, make sure you turn up those mic pre's first of all. You'll see the meters right there on the right side of the gain, and then that'll show you where your levels are at. In that same routing tab, we're going to just click on USB. So this is your USB routing. Everything's assigned USB 1 to mic pre 1, USB to mic pre 2. That's how it's set up at default. You would probably want to set it that way, but you could set it up any way you want. This is probably going to be the most intuitive for you though. And then once you set that, you're done. You're done with Master Fader. Your mic pre's are turned up. Your routing looks good. You can close out the app and you can disconnect from the DL. Now you can just go into your software like Pro Tools or whatever software you're using and just get to recording. It's that easy with the Master Fader 5. So we went to the microphones into the DL. We made sure our routing looked good in the computer. We plugged it into our computer, and then, of course, make sure it's set as the input device on your Mac or PC. Now let's talk about outputs. So on the bottom section of the DL mixers, that's your outputs. This is where you plug in external speakers. There's also a phones control on the right, so you can plug your headphones right into the DL as well, and there's a level knob to adjust that right above it. So if we're doing outputs, we go DL to our headphones or speakers. In this picture, those are our MC350 headphones and our MR studio monitors. These are a step up from the headphones and monitors we've been talking about before. The ones we talked about before are entry-level ones. These are a little bit more professional. You're going to get more professional audio quality out of these, and you can actually mix professional recordings on these. If you are looking to mix music, this is what the professionals use. But for podcasting, you could get away with the entry-level stuff, but this is definitely a step up when doing post-production. And of course, set the DL as the output device on your computer. So those are the two DLs, the DL16S and 32S. Also, if you want to step up from the MC100 headphones, these are the other 4 we have in line. We have the MC150s, which have a smiley face EQ curve, a little bit of a boost in the bass and highs. The MC250s, which have a flat frequency response. So if you are trying to mix, you want to probably use a flat frequency response headphone, and that's the MC250. That's the second one in line. And the MC350 is also flat. That's the third one in line, but it has better components. The driver is a little bit more high quality. The headband is metal over plastic. You get memory foam padding on it as well. And then the fourth one in line is an open back headphone solution. We have the MC450. So this is open back. So if you were standing next to someone wearing these, you would hear what's coming in the headphone, and they would hear you as well because they are open back. This gives you an emulation of having studio monitors in a room. So it gives you a wider sound space. So it sounds like you're listening to speakers in a room compared to headphones on your head. So that's what the MC450's open back headphones do for you. And then we have 2 monitors above the CR series we talked about before. That's the MR series. That's right in the middle. I currently use the MRs. That's what's right behind me, the MR6s. And then the HR series. So the HR series is definitely a very professional studio monitor. You find them in a lot of recording studios. They're THX certified, so they're used a lot in post-production. And that's the HR series. We're on the HR MK2 series. So with all the products I've talked about today, minus the headphones, you actually get $500 worth of free software from Mackie. And you've probably heard this name be thrown out there quite a bit, but Pro Tools. We include Pro Tools first with over 16 plugins worth $300 worth of plugins. The cool thing about that is you can actually dive into most features in Pro Tools using Pro Tool first and our plugins. You can also export, but you can only save up to 1 session. It is the trial version essentially. But if you're ready to upgrade and you do want to upgrade to Pro Tools, flagship version, you can still carry over those $300 worth of plugins we gave you. So that's super cool about that bundle. But we also included a full version DAW for you, full version software. you can use if you need that full version for free. And that's Waveform OEM with the DAW Essentials. That's with $200 worth of free plugins. And we include both of those. And that's with buying a simple microphone too, or a little interface. If you get our bundles, our monitors, you get this software card for both of those softwares. So $500 worth of free software when you buy those Mackie products.
Oh my gosh. Did you just say that Mackie includes $500 worth of free software when purchasing any of the products we mentioned today?
Sure did.
And one of those softwares is Pro Tools. Pro Tools First with $300 worth of free plugins. That is so cool, man. Well, since you brought it up, can you show us how you would route audio into Pro Tools? And also, what if we wanted to live stream on a live streaming platform like YouTube? Can you show us that too?
Yeah, for sure. So this will be the last segment we go into. And then after this, we'll go into our Q&A. So please drop your questions into the comment box. We'll get around to all your questions. And then we'll also dive into the giveaway too. We're giving away that Performer bundle. So that bundle that had 2 microphones, a Pro FX 6 mixer with USB interface, headphones, CRX monitors, and all the cabling. We're giving that away for free. So stick around for that. We're going to give it away to a lucky winner. Make sure you drop in the comments. That's what enters you into that contest. So let's say if we're doing post-productions, right, into that Pro Tools First software we just mentioned, let's see what that would look like. So make sure on your computer you go into the input and output audio settings. We're going to use the DL that we were talking about earlier as it. You would want to do that before opening the software, but in this example, I had to open up the software first because it takes forever to open. But essentially, once it's open, go ahead and name your session, set any settings you like, and then go create. And this will open up a new session. Once your session's open, let's go ahead and just expand that window here. You're going to want to go to Setup and go to Playback Engine. This is where you set your device. So we're going to click that Mackie driver. If you buy a deal, go to Mackie.com, download our driver. It works very well with Pro Tools. Once that's set, go back to Setup and go to I/O. Now we see in our output, we see 16 outputs and we see 16 inputs. It's reading the DL, that's good, but they're all in stereo. We don't want that. So we're going to delete all those paths. We're going to go create new path. We're going to set it to 16 mono inputs. That way we get every microphone and every channel on its own channel. And you, of course, can go into the output tab and the bus tab and, select if you want those to be stereo or not. Typically, you would want it to be stereo since you're setting it to like monitors or a headphone, but you can adjust that here in the I/O tab in Pro Tools. But once you're ready to go ahead and just select OK in the bottom right corner. Now let's create our tracks. So we're going to go up to Track. We're going to go New. We're going to do our 16 channels. We're going to get all 16 inputs. We're going to make sure they're mono tracks and make sure they're audio tracks. And then we're just going to say create. Now, the super awesome intuitive thing about Pro Tools is it sets every input to be in sync with your preamps. So track 1 is input 1. Audio 2 is input 2. Track 3 is input 3. If you want to go in and adjust those yourself, you just got to make sure the I/O window is showing, and you go to that little input page and you say what you would want it to be, but it's already ascending for us, which is awesome. So when you're ready to record, you're just going to go to each track you want to record. So since we're doing, 4 microphones in this example, go to our first 4 tracks. We're going to hit the little record button on all 4 tracks. That arms the tracks. Now we're going to go up to the top right, arm the record button there, and then you're actually going to have to hit play to start actually recording. So as you can see here, I don't have any microphones plugged in, so we're not going to see any waveforms, but we are recording. We're getting all 4 of those tracks recording. That's what that red box is on each one. And then when we're done, you just say stop. We see the nice colorful rainbow that Pro Tools gives us. You can zoom in and look at your tracks and see if the waveforms look healthy. Again, we're not recording anything in this example, so there's no waveforms, but when you're ready to bounce out, just select all the tracks you'd like. And different from Audacity, we're actually going to go to bounce to instead of export to get a audio track. So we're going to go bounce to. We're going to go select all your settings you want. We're going to do a WAV file, name your file, and say bounce. Now you have an audio file stored on your computer that you can upload to all your streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you're using. And it's just that easy. Pro Tools looks a little scary because it is very manual. And again, it's the audio industry, as far as studio recordings go, standard for software. So, you know, in this example, in this video, I hope I broke it down enough for you how easy it is to use. And again, if you missed anything, we're going to have this video recorded later that you can go into our YouTube page at Mackie TV and see that video. But let's see what it would look like if we're doing live streaming. So again, OBS is a software I recommend everyone to use. It's free to download, allows you to stream audio and video to whatever platform you want: Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. So we're going to use the DL in this situation though, or let's use the Pro Effects. So we're going to use the Pro Effects. We're going to go into our audio settings, of course, set the input and output device as the Pro Effects. And then once we got that all set, we're going to open up that OBS software. And since we did Twitch last time, we'll go ahead and see what it looks like live streaming to YouTube, because you actually have to use a code. It's a little bit different. So again, go to your scenes, make a scene. Within the scene, go to sources, and then set a audio input device and make sure it's set as the Pro Effects. And then also within scenes, you're going to want to click the plus button again, and then set the audio output device to be the Pro Effects as well. And then say OK. And then whatever video you want to stream, right? So if you want to screen share, if you want to use an external camera, your webcam, whatever you want to use, go ahead and select it there. And then in the right, we're going to go to settings. So in the last example, we were able to sign in on OBS to Twitch, but in the other platforms, you have to use a code. So you're going to go to, we're going to do YouTube in this. So we're going to go Service, YouTube. Then we're going to go to our YouTube page. We're going to click the little camera button, and then we're going to say Go Live. This is where you would also upload videos, but we're going to say Go Live. Once YouTube Studio opens up, it's going to generate that code for you. So right where the little dots are, you're going to copy that. You're going to go back into OBS and then paste it right where the dots are in OBS. So I clicked in there, Command V, click Apply, and then click OK. Now OBS knows where to send your live stream, and then just say Start Streaming. Again, you'll see in OBS at the bottom, you'll see some data going on, letting you know that you are live, you are streaming now. And if we go back to our YouTube page, we are now officially live streaming. And it's going to look a little funky because we're doing a screen share, but there's our OBS screen share. It's live. And again, that's free software, OBS, and you're using professional audio equipment going into whatever streaming platform you like to use. And that's just how easy it is to use. So, and that's how you optimize your podcast audio from mic all the way to the listener, starting with entry-level setups, using a simple USB microphone, all the way to multi-track recording using a multi-track recorder. And now we're moments away from our special giveaway, so still stick around, but we want to answer your questions too. So let's go ahead and see what questions we got here.
I've got some questions here.
Cool.
We'll pop them up on the screen.
Yeah.
So Steve Phillips, he says he's curious about this mic, and he currently has a Blue Yeti. So he's basically just doing it when we were going over the microphones. He's curious about the new USB microphones, and he has a few questions as we go through. But I just wanted to put that up there. That was a comment that he had made.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and answer that question real quick, Brad.
Here's his question, the one coming up. So he's a USB guy, being most of my people are remote from me, and he's interested in the EM USB Carbon and Chromium. What type of microphone would you recommend for someone who currently uses a Blue Yeti and does podcasting and voiceover? That's
a great question, Steven. So with the Mackie EM USB, that's actually what I'm using right now. So if you're liking the tone of my voice in this presentation, that's what I'm using. I'll show it to the camera real quick here. So this is the EM USB. The controls are right here on the microphone itself. So we have the mute button if you want to mute yourself. There's the gain control, also a headphone out. So Mackie's been around since 1989 and doing transducer design since 1999. So we've been in the game for a long time. So you're actually getting professional quality components in a microphone at an affordable price. So it does sit around the same price point as the Blue Yeti. but the components are a lot better build. You're going to get a more professional sound out of it. We were doing a thing yesterday with Pod Mob, and they were getting a lot of clicks and pops out of their Blue Yeti. I don't know if you experienced that, but that sometimes happens. With the EM USB mics, you get it nice and tame, nice and flat where you need it. It's not too crisp, not too bright, but it's not too mid-heavy. It's just right where you want it to sit, so you can dial in the tone yourself. So that's the benefit of using a Mackie USB mic over the others. We also have carbon and chromium. I can grab carbon actually for you real quick.
Yeah, I just would mention that carbon, would be the direct competitor with the Yeti microphone. We've got multiple polar patterns, got 5 capsules in there. You got the dedicated gain control and headphone output, all built into the microphone, dedicated stand, all the bells and whistles that you're looking for, but in a much more quality build and a better product and all around features set that way. But you'd have to let your ears hear that. But we've got some great videos up on YouTube demonstrating with these microphones, and also in the podcast movement thread itself, actually using the mics and going over them in a demonstration process.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so carbon's going to have those extra polar patterns, that gain control. It's built on its own stand. Chromium is going to have those features as well, but it's going to have the built-in interface built in for like external sources. So if you want to plug in a line level signal or guitar, you could, and it has metering as well on the Chromium. So if they all do have a slightly different tone. So if you want to hear what they sound like, Brad did an awesome video on our Mackie TV page. So if you go to YouTube, go to Mackie TV. It's one of our most recent videos. Brad did basically a listening demo of each microphone independently, so you can hear which one you like best. He also goes over the features as well. It's a great question.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Stephen. So Debbie has a question for us, and she says, what would the flow be, signal flow, if you have one USB and one XLR? It's a great question.
Yeah, so that can get a little tricky because when you're in your software on your computer, you set input devices, right? And typically, say if you're using XLR into an interface, and then that interface is going USB to your computer, and then you're using a USB microphone on your computer, you're going to have to select one of those sources, typically, in most cases. So in that case, I would recommend probably sticking with one or the other. If you're using more than one microphone, stick with the interface with your XLR microphones. If you are going USB or just using yourself and you like your USB mic better, use that one. But it can get tricky with the signal flow of using both. You may have to use 2 separate computers. But again, whatever software or anything you have open, you select one input device. So
yeah, unfortunately, the XLR, like we talked earlier, is going to require an audio interface in order to convert the analog signal to digital to get it into the computer. The USB mic has that built into the microphone, so when you're plugging an interface in a USB mic, you're only going to really be able to use one or the other on a single computer setup. So that's basically the gist of it. So you wouldn't be able to use a USB mic with an XLR mic currently at this time, but who knows what the future holds for us. So thank you for that question. That was a great question. And then we've got one.
Thanks, Debbie.
This one's a big one. So I'm gonna put it up in pieces on the screen for you, okay, Ty, so we can go through this one. It says, so I meet guests at their workplace when I can. Example, glass blowing facilities, zoos, etc. I like listeners to be able to hear real sounds. And then hear the guest, of course, as well. So what is the best mic to optimize what I'm doing? I know it's not the traditional podcast. Also, I'm getting into video podcasting, ideas for optimizing audio with an iPhone or even an SLR like camera, like a single lens reflex camera. So that was kind of Catherine's question.
That is an excellent question. So this is something we covered on Tuesday when Brad went into the different USB microphones. But in that type of situation, you would want to use a microphone with an omni pattern. An omni pattern essentially picks up all the sounds around you. The Carbon has that. So the Carbon actually has 5 capsules. So they're located all around the microphone. And you select which polar pattern you want. Say if you want it just coming in the side, or in the front, in the side, front and back, sides, or from all around the microphone. Those are what those polar patterns are for. This is also a USB mic. So if you are remote on the go, again, you're in applications like a zoo, you could actually plug USB mics into your cell phone. We have a video on that as well. If you go to our Mackie TV page on YouTube, I made a video on how to set up a USB microphone into your cell phone. So the most optimal solution for you would be using a USB microphone such as Carbon with the Omni pattern so you can pick up everything. And there's also the bi-directional pattern. So if you're in an interview and you set this in front of you and there's someone on the other side, it'll pick up each piece. So say if it's getting a little noisy in the zoo and you don't want all the external noises, you can actually just do the bi-directional instead of the whole Omni pattern. And it shows you a little graphic of each pattern and you just select which one you want.
Thank you, Ty. There's another question from Steven again. So he asked on the board, how would I connect different people from sources such as Skype or Discord and my audio so each is on their own track? Using the mixer, I could go into that one. Using the mixer, so it will sum all your tracks together through the stereo bus, but you can, let's say track 1 and 2, you can pan one hard left, one hard right, and you can create 2 separate tracks in your DAW. And using our ProFX V3 series, you can get 2 separate mono tracks out of the ProFX V3. You could also sum all those tracks together, but if you want to do multi-track, our audio interfaces that we went over, like the Onyx interface, the producer, and also the Big Knob Studio and Studio Plus, will give you multi-track capabilities as well.
Yep, great answer. Thanks for that question, Steven. We'd love to see them.
There might be things in the future. Who knows? We might have a new mixer coming out that does multi-track recording. We did go over the DL mixer that does multi-track currently, but there might be something else that could be coming as well. Aaron Clark has a question. Thank you, Steven, for that question.
Yeah, it looks like we got this one last question from Aaron, and then we'll dive into our giveaway. So stick around. We're going to answer this one last question, and we'll announce the winner.
Okay. There's a couple pieces to this question, so I'm going to flash the first one on the screen here, and then we'll get the other half right there. If you want to read that one,
yeah.
Ty?
Yeah, what would you recommend for multi-track recording when the other tracks are remote? Recording multiple people with various mic setups, everyone working from their own home.
And then it's what equipment should I, as the host, make sure I have at my disposal to ensure good audio quality for everyone?
Yeah, that's a great question. So using a more complex DAW with more flexibility is going to be a great solution. So Pro Tools, for example, is going to be a good solution to get remote channels into your software to get it all into one spot. And then if you are doing multi-track at your own home, you could use the MTR like the DL. But if it's just yourself, you could just use a USB mic or go into an interface. But all the routing for like remote collabs, you would want to do within a software like Pro Tools that can do like cloud sharing and things like that. If you are doing like a live stream where the platform allows you to have everyone routed to the same source, like currently we are actually using the platform StreamYard to stream now, and we're getting Brad's audio and my feed all into one spot. So if you are doing it live and there's video and audio, you might want to look into getting some sort of software that allows you to do that, such as like StreamYard. But as far as routing their audio, they route their own into the software, and then it all shows up in the same place. All right, well, we got a minute left, so now I think it's time to announce the winner. And again, we're feeling super generous today. How about you, Brad? You feeling generous?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we're going to give away the full Performer bundle. That's 2 microphones, ProFX, studio monitors, everything included. So who is our winner today? It looks like Debbie Talley. Debbie, you're a winner today. Woohoo! Make sure to contact us at podcast@mackie.com, Debbie. We'll get you taken care of from there. We also want to give away another piece of gear because we love that everyone stuck around. You had great questions, and I hope you learned something. So we're going to give away one more piece of gear. Those are the MC350 headphones that we discussed earlier. And let's pick a winner here. Steven Phillips. Woohoo! Steven. Thanks for your great questions, Steven. We definitely want to throw you a pair of headphones for those excellent questions.
And we wanted to let you guys know, too, there was a question earlier about using USB mic, and I think that came from Debbie, using a USB mic with an audio interface. And on OS X on a Mac, you can build an aggregate device that allows you to do multiple. So we wanted to get that information out there. So that is possible, actually, Debbie. So thanks for that question. And again, thank you everyone for joining us. What a wonderful presentation, Ty. It was great. Learned a lot.
Thanks for joining us today. And I hope everyone was able to take something away from this presentation. We can't hear what you produce next. You can always share your Mackie setups on our Instagram page at Mackie Gear using the hashtag MadeOnMackie. And also, don't forget to check out our YouTube page at Mackie TV. We have a ton of videos that may help you with your podcast setups, so don't forget to check that out. Well, again, my name is Tyler Vaughn.
And I'm Brad Gagne. And don't forget, Debbie and Steven, please reach out to podcast@Mackie to get your prizes, okay? So again, that's podcast@Mackie. So reach out to them, shoot them an email, let them know that you won, and we'll get you your giveaway.
Yep. Thanks for sticking around, everyone.
Perfect.
Hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy PodMob. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.